I have some advice is, yes, we believe as prophets. We absolutely do. But you don't just sit back because we've got our part to play. God has made us part of his family. And as a part of his family and his ecclesia, we have a job to do. He told us to pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Until it is on earth as it is in heaven, we got to pray. But God wouldn't tell us to, Jesus wouldn't tell us to pray that if he didn't mean to answer our prayers. But that means we've got to pray. And in praying, we've got to know a little bit about what we're doing. You know, our military knows about our potential enemies. We need to know our potential enemies. God said, my people perish, or my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. When you don't know what you're up against, when you don't know your enemy, you're at a disadvantage. That's really one of the main reasons, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons that we published this book is so you understand about the strong man that's our real enemy. You know, Jesus talked about in Matthew 12 and verse 24 through 29, he identified Baal as the strong man over America. Let me back up just a second. Ephesians 6:12 says, we wrestle not, or we war not against flesh, but against principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness of this world. So we need to know who are these principalities and powers. And so in Matthew 12:24 through 29, Jesus said that Baal is the strong man. He is the ruler of the demons. Now, it's listed as Beelzebub, but Baal is a god of 1,000 faces. And when you look at the complete Jewish Bible, you see that it says Beelzebub. It's just another one of Baal's names. Baal is the strong man over America and the nations. The Bible really tells us that. And in verse 29 of Matthew 12, Jesus said, how can you plunder the strong man's house unless you first bind the strong man? But you can't bind that strong man. You can't bind your enemy if you don't know who the enemy is and you don't know how the enemy operates. So Baal is that strong man very clearly. And in the book, we tell people how he operates and the characteristics, the evil characteristics that we look for. And we can bind that strong man.
Well, that was going to be my next question for you in terms of what would you say are some of the key principalities, powers, demonic forces right now that we are wrestling against? Because I think sometimes people kind of go on this demonic witch hunt. It's like, oh, you know, turning over every rock to find a demon. At the same time, I do believe the Lord wants us to have a strategic equipping for where we actually recognize, like you were saying, we need to know and recognize our enemy so we know how to deal with him. So what would you say are some of those key high-level spirits that, I mean, people might be watching the news, people might be engaged in entertainment, and they will be seeing these spirits have influence in society right now?
Well, the enemy, Satan, has a structure. And just as Jesus is the executor of our Father's will, I believe that Baal is the executor of Satan's will. They're two different names, two different entities. And since Baal is identified as the ruler of the demons, that's who we have to knock out. But Baal is also known as the god of 1,000 faces. In other words, he wants to disguise himself. Deception and fear is the enemy's actions. And if he can deceive us into not recognizing what he's doing, then he's won. Well, Baal is noted as 1,000 different names, but just to name a few: the sun god, anywhere there's sun worship, and that's all around the world. Bel, Apollo, Zeus, Marduk, Protheus, Jupiter, Nimrod, Mithra. But then Baal is as much female as he is male. And the queen of heaven is usually the female portion of the Baal principality. And you find the moon and the sun goddess and names such as Ashtaroth, Artemis, all in the Bible. Lilith, Minerva, Columbia. You know, the statue on our nation's capital is the Statue of Columbia. That's why they called it the District of Columbia on our nation's capital. That's idolatry.
Wow.
And when we allow those things directly, it's all in plain sight, Larry. But when we don't understand what we're dealing with, then the enemy gets in on us. And Baal Hamon is one of Baal's names, and it means the Lord of wealth and abundance. And this is the principality that's warring against the great transfer of wealth to the church. It also, Baal Berith, means Lord of the covenant. So Baal is the one that causes covenant breaking, and covenant breaking, in families. So this is not just for nations; it's for individuals, our own families. When there's divorce or there's a covenant breaking there, of course, God can heal us and forgive us, but Baal is the one behind covenant breaking. He's also the one behind sexual perversion that's so rampant across our nation. And also, he's a violent spirit. We've seen a lot of violence on television. That's orchestrated by Baal. And he's also demanded human sacrifice. The biggest form of human sacrifice is abortion. So abortion is under Baal. A lot of people say, well, it's under Marduk. And yes, but those things are under Baal itself. So once and also Baal is the principality behind witchcraft and occult. So we have to take our authority and bind the strongman.